Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today as we talk about how software helps with labor shortages in your credit department, why it happens, and how you're going to stop it. Today, we are joined by Nick Ezzo. He's the VP of Product Marketing with Auditoria. Thanks for joining us today, Nick.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
And Alan Francis, of course, with LevelSet, handles our Manager of Credit Operations. Thank you for joining us, Alan.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. Okay, once again, I'll just start. My name is Alan Francis. I'm Manager of Credit Operations. I've been in credit management for about 30 years. And LevelSet has been probably has been the best career move I've ever made. We are out there working in several areas to help people get paid what they're supposed to be paid. You know, it's there for the subcontractor, the general contractor, people that are supposed to be paid in construction that have such a hard time getting paid. This helps them get paid. And that's what I bring to the table as far as this is concerned, to give you an idea of what a credit manager's perspective might be. And then Nick has his company has been amazing, learning more about what they do, bringing technology to because technology will change everything. And I think we all notice that. And basically we're going to take some time today, just going back and forth. And we all know that as the labor market's is becoming more restrictive and everything, that we have to be smarter with the way we work. And so I'm going to turn it over to Nick, have him give a little introduction about himself.
Great. Thanks, Alan. My name is Nick Ezzo. I head up marketing here at Auditoria. We're about a 2-year-old company, two years and some change. And I've been with the firm for about that long, 2 years and 1 month. Our purpose at Auditoria is to help finance and accounting people kind of get their lives back. You know, finance and accounting people work nights, weekends, and holidays. They do a lot of routine, mundane stuff. We've developed kind of an army of bots, if you will, software bots that help you do accounting software tasks faster. So whether it's posting journal entries or responding to customer and vendor requests, we do all that kind of stuff. Prior to joining Auditoria, I was with an ERP vendor called Sage Intacct for a number of years. And then prior to that, I was with a planning and budgeting company called Host Analytics, or Planful, for a number of years before that. So I've really been in this fintech space, helping finance and accounting people try to get their lives back for the last 8 years or so. So happy to be here. Thanks, Alan.
So as you can tell from the title, what we're looking for is what's causing all the increased turnover and how come labor has become such a problem to find. We know that's happening all over the place. A lot of people are jumping out of the labor market, or they've decided, you know what, I'm going to try to do something else. And a lot of times, especially in the accounting area, that the duties and the tasks have become so mundane that maybe they're losing the joy of employment and they just don't want to be there anymore. You've got a lot of people vying for the same labor pool, and it's making it more expensive. And a lot of times when you hear technology come along with labor, everybody has the same fear. I'm going to be replaced by a computer. Or I'm going to be replaced by software. And from what I've already seen in the way this is working, and where, if you've been a credit manager, or if you work with accounts receivable for any time at all, every time a new piece of software comes out, everybody's always afraid it's going to replace somebody. And actually, it usually it steps it up a level, and everything becomes more impactful. And there's still plenty of room for many more employees. So I'm just going to tell you that what we find, it's harder finding good people to man your phones and to talk to your customers. Your first point of contact, that is so important. And so we've got to find a way. The customer cannot call, and we cannot communicate with the customer by email all the time. There has to be some personal input, and there has to be some contact made. And I think Nick's group is head and shoulders above what you see coming in the industry. And he's going to make, from what I can tell, he's going to make every call that we make much more impactful. So I don't want to step out of my lane. And Nick, if you want to speak to that as well.
That sounds good. Are we on this agenda slide, or should we move forward into the actual presentation?
Can go forward.
All right. So, as Alan said, we've got lots and lots of things that are causing stress in the back office. It's not just the routine, mundane tasks, but if you switch to the next slide, there's a whole list of things that we've seen. And I know Alan's seen it. We do a survey here, third year in a row, we do a survey of struggles in the back office, if you will, or the state of automation in the back office. And we surveyed 200 people the first year, 500 people the second year, and this year we're doing about 1,000 survey respondents, we hear the same things over and over again. It's things like lack of visibility. If your job is to guide the organization and you can't see what's out ahead of you, you're trying to fly the plane and you can't see, the mountain in front of you. Mm-hmm. So that's a big problem. It's also a source of friction in the back office. Lack of standardization and things like processes, the skills. I'll touch on that for a moment. I talk to CFOs every day. In fact, I do a CFO video corner called the CFO Corner. And I interviewed a guy a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, hey, what are the biggest challenges that you find when you're hiring people? And he said, Nick, these kids coming out of college, they don't want to do the work that we did coming up, when we were young in our careers. Number one, they don't want to do data entry. Number two, they don't want to make sure column A matches column B. And number three, most importantly, they sure as heck don't want to call people on the phone and ask them for money. And so we found that it's a big issue, exacerbated by the fact that a lot of older folks, people who have been in the industry for a while, are retiring. So, the person who's been doing that accounts receivable job or credit manager job for 26 years, she's decided she's going to go, live in Hawaii, and they try to hire somebody out of college. Nobody wants to do that work. Mm-hmm. Alan touched on the fear of being replaced. I think we should talk more about that. I agree wholeheartedly with you, Alan. Sometimes there is a fear that this robot's going to replace me. But I agree with you that.
Can I jump back to the lack of required skills? I have a great anecdote. If you will give me a minute,
please.
Anybody that's from the New Orleans areas or knows anything about New Orleans, right after Katrina, there was a labor drain, incredible labor drain. And a lot of it has to do with it's not just the lack of skill, but the labor force wanting to shortcut and take shortcuts all the way across the board. So I was trying to find a file clerk, a simple file clerk. Average pay right then was $8 to $9 an hour. But I ran into something after Katrina that Wendy's next door was paying $16 an hour. No. So I'm going to pay my file clerk $9 an hour when she or he can go down the street and get $15 or $16 an hour at Wendy's. So after reviewing several applicants, I finally came up with who I thought was going to be the best candidate, set her off on a task, and you could tell she was not all about she was not detail oriented. So her task was to take all these files, there were lots of them, and refile them after the storm and get them all done, give her a week to get it done and everything else. And I noticed after a day of working, the next day she said she was finished. And it kind of surprised me because I'd given her an entire week to do that. But you could always tell she was looking for something new and something she wanted to be the one that did a different task all the time. Well, when I went to check and see how the files were being filed, there was maybe one or two in A and one or two in B and one or two files all the way up to Z. But I got to the T's, and the T's were loaded, file cabinet after file cabinet. She put the word "the" in front of every company's name. And I ended up in that's where she stopped with the alphabetizing everything. And so I ended up with 7 cabinets full of "thes." So that's what you run into. That's what you run into when you have competition for labor. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. Hope the anecdote wasn't too ridiculous, but it's real. I swear to it.
Oh,
thank you, Nick.
I love that anecdote. Let me tell you a quick story on the fear of being replaced. This is one where I've run into this over and over and over again. When I was a kid growing up in the 1970s, my mom used to drive a Buick station wagon, ugly big brown Buick station wagon. You guys probably remember them. And she'd pull into the gas station, and the gas station attendant would come out of a little hut, and she'd roll on the window and she'd say, fill it up with regular or unleaded. He'd pump the gas, check the oil, wash the windshields. He'd do those little credit card swipe thing, and we'd be off on our merry way. When I was in high school in the 1980s, it was introduced something called pay at the pump. And pay at the pump meant you could just pull up unless you live in Oregon or some parts of New Jersey, you could pull up and pump your own gas, swipe your debit or credit card, and off you go. And I always wondered what happened to that guy in the hut that would come out and wash the windows, check the oil, and pump the gas. And I thought, well, maybe he became a pay at the pump installer. Maybe he became a pay at the pump maintainer or a designer. What I found out recently is he's none of those things. He's still inside the hut, but he doesn't have to come out and do anything anymore. He sits behind the counter and he makes more money than he's ever seen, selling $5 candy bars and $8 bottles of Gatorade and $20 things of windshield washer fluid. So my point is, Alan and the rest of the team, to technology is actually a way to elevate people and to lift up their skills and give them the work that they want to do, not the work that they were doing before. That's the end of my story.
That's great.
So what do you want to say a few words about compliance and auditing, Alan? I mean, how does that affect people's stress level in the back office? They're constantly being bombarded with requests from the auditors.
Yeah, basically, a few times in a given year, I'm sure we've all experienced it. There's this little organization that either it's a tax group from the state or local tax professionals that they want to come and do a tax audit, or you also have the bank that 2 or 3 times a year want to pull financials, and they're looking for the holes in your finances. They're looking for places where the due diligence has not been done. But what do you do with that? You're trying to service your customer. You're trying to get that information into the customer. You're trying to service them, get their product out the door. Then you start chasing dollar from day one. And you're on your net 30 terms. If you wait 2 weeks into that, you've got to make sure that the invoices have gone out. You've got to make sure. And then if you give your customer time up until the 30th day, then you're already behind the 8 ball and you're not getting it done. Then you have this horrible thing, if you know cross-aging at all, which is a fancy way for you to hear from the bank. Most credit lines for most companies, I think some here will probably be aware of this, they determine how much of a credit line you get based on your aging. And if one of your larger customers has an invoice that goes over day 90, you cannot count any of their AR towards your credit line. Yeah. So if you can imagine $2 million of a credit line and invoice for $35 is disputed and it goes over 90 days, suddenly you are less that $2 million in your credit line. So compliance and auditing is crucial, and you've got to free up your people to be able to do that piece of business. And I think that's another thing, Nick, that your group helps with.
Yeah.
It makes it easier and more time sensitive.
Yeah, it occurs to me that a lot of times finance and accounting people, they keep their heads down. They don't want to be noticed. And typically whenever you notice them, it's when they've screwed up dramatically. And so, yeah, that is a huge source of stress. Like, am I going to pass the audit? Are they going to find some glaring material error in my books? And then if you're a publicly traded company, that's a kiss of death. That could be, the CFO or the controller has to go find a new job because you may have to restate earnings. So it is a big source of stress, and that stress then flows downward to everyone else in the organization. In terms of the constant deadlines, I mean, we all know that finance and accounting people in the construction industry and all industries, they work nights, weekends, and holidays away from their family. They tend to throw bodies at the problem versus using technology. And personally, I think Alan and I would like to see that change. Let's take a smarter approach to using technology, so you don't have to work nights, weekends, and holidays. You can spend that time with your family. Thoughts on that, Alan?
That's exactly it. Because if you're working in any type of accounting background at all, you know that there's multiple closing dates in a given construction month. You have your soft close on the 25th. You have your hard close on the 30th. Then you have the beginning of the following month when all the reports are due. Your aging is running at any given point in time. Some people work in 15-day buckets, some work in 7-day buckets. But you're constantly having to show someone that you're meeting your deadlines, you're providing the reports when they're necessary, and then out of the blue, 4 of your customers may be under a tax audit, and they're going to come to you and say, hey, we didn't keep track of our records and very well. Please give us how much we bought from you and how much we've paid in taxes. Well, I mean, what you'd like to say is, we're not your bookkeeper, but you're sensitive to that and you want to help give them the information they need. So the only way around that in this type of labor market is you've got to find technology to solve your problem.
Yeah, I completely agree. And
I have a little antidote for you guys if you want me to share it.
Please do. We've been ignoring you here. Go on.
So I am definitely one of those people that did not want to use software. Texas lien law, right? 15th of every month. I wouldn't let Level Set show me their product. I wouldn't let anybody show me their product. It was manual for 8 years. I just didn't trust it. Then my boss made me try it. And what took me maybe 4 or 5 days each month to do now took 2 hours. So all that time I wasted because I didn't want to try it out, it definitely does help and gives you, like you said, free time to do something else.
Yeah, a friend of mine who's she is a controller, in a company in Arizona, one of the largest franchisees of Burger King there. She implemented some technology, and it actually freed up enough of her time that she was able to go back to school, earn another degree, and now she's also the head of HR. So in addition to being the head of accounting, she's also the head of HR.
Congrats.
Well, I think most of us know how much credit managers make. We're not the most well-paid people in the group, but you do pay some money for them. So I want you to think about that. I've been sent to college. I have had 30 years experience, and up until I got the level set, every one of my employers was paying me what they were paying me for me to spend 2 days a month out of all the collection days to lick envelopes.
Oh God.
And go to the post office and talk to the little old lady or little old man behind the counter that was stamping all my certified letter notices. How ridiculous is that?
Oh, it took so much time.
It's so much time. And if you talk about the value of a dollar, talk about time just wasted.
Yeah.
When I could be servicing a customer. So there's that anecdote for our side of it.
For sure. Well, somebody told me recently that the CPA does not stand for copy, paste, and attach.
I love that. It does,
right?
All right. How are we doing on time here? Should we move to the next the slide?
I think you're doing good.
All right. Sounds great. So these are a couple of the other things. Alan, you want to pick one or two off here that you want to highlight, or shall I?
I think what happens when you come to especially construction, and Lori, I think you'll agree with me on this. We have a lot of cycles that happen during the course of a year. So, sometimes it's very busy in one area and then it switches over and becomes very busy in another area. Right. And I think that causes things to get overly complicated for no reason. It's hard you're constantly reassigning resources. So Betty or Dan that was working on you, helping you with your aging report is now over here helping you make sure your lien rights are protected and everything else. It's just the constant struggle and moving around. Plus, at any given time, how much turnover do you have? People are naturally retiring. People are naturally moving on or going away back to school or anything like that. So when you have new people come in, just like it says, culture shifts, especially with level set. I was the old guy coming in. When they hired me, I think, Lori, I still think I held the record until we got bought. I think I was the oldest guy to come on to the group at age 54 years old.
I was the oldest until you came along.
That's right. and with that becomes a change in culture. Mm-hmm. So you've got to protect your labor. You've got to figure out how you're going to move with the process. Quarter one has different activities than quarter three. Quarter two has different activities than quarter four. And then quarter four by itself takes an entire group of everybody's hands on deck, just trying to finish out your December. So, and then, obviously when we have other things that you're not prepared for, like COVID, or if you're in a natural disaster area, we spend a lot of time at level set. When a hurricane would come in, you've got to continue keeping the trains running on time while your staff is moving to all 4 points of the globe and trying to get that handled. And there's sometimes just too much for too few people. And so I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a downward spiral. It's a problem that feeds on itself, because when you lose somebody, just any given person in the organization, well, not only have you let that talent walk out the door, but now everybody else who remains has to pick up the slack for that person. Mm-hmm. And now already a demotivated team becomes even less motivated, because now, okay, you're not paying me anymore, and I got to do Bob's work over here too. And then your boss is yelling at you. You got deadlines. All of a sudden, a recruiter calls. And we've all had that happen. A recruiter calls you on one of your bad days. You may not want to pick up that phone, but okay, just had a bad day, and they call you, you take the interview, and now you've got another employee that's walking out the door, taking all that experience with them, all that money and time you spent training them. It's a huge hassle for the company. It makes the company less competitive. And then again, those people that are left behind have to pick up the slack for those people that are leaving. So we have to find a way to solve this problem without just hiring.
You're going to either have to pay them more, or you're going to have to do something to make them feel like, because they're going to feel demotivated when things like that happen. And one thing that I have found, just another short anecdote, when things like that happen, when suddenly you're short-staffed in a department, it says disorganization, suddenly something's going to be missed and something's going to be dropped. Oh, yeah. If you're a boss or any type, you want to find out how disorganized your team is as opposed to what they appear to be. Go in on a Friday and start checking waste baskets when you have a deadline coming up.
Mm.
Because when filing needs to be done, suddenly the files aren't really done. They're showing up in the bottom of file cabinets, or all these mysterious papers are showing up next to the copy machine. You go
I've
into the
seen that.
go to the lunchroom and you see manila folders in the lunchroom. What's that all about? And I'm not saying you have a dishonest team, but they've got to prioritize themselves, and something's going to be missed. And a lot of us are afraid to have that open, honest conversation with our employees because they're afraid they're going to be fired, or they're afraid there's going to be something negative. I mean, how often do you ever want to go to your boss and say, you know what, I just can't keep up?
Oh, never.
I mean, you're never gonna do that. It's never gonna happen. Your employees are never gonna do that. It's almost like you're asking them to come and be beaten. So that's just one more thing. And so disorganization, when you start seeing disorganization, it's not because your employees became lazy, it's because they're overworked usually.
Yeah. Yeah. And COVID-19 did kind of uncover a lot of that was already going on. It's not that it caused it to happen. Some it did, but in many ways, COVID-19 just underscored issues that were already there structurally that we did not want to address up till now. One thing I would tell you about one quick story on that, and you can stay on this slide.
Okay.
I was talking to a young lady a little while ago, a couple of weeks back, and she worked for a company that made aviation parts, where they were a distributor of aviation parts. And during the COVID, planes weren't flying, so they didn't have a lot of servicing, so they didn't need a lot of parts. And so, their accounts receivable department went from 12 people to 4 people. And they made every single one of those 4 people that were remained, the survivors, became collections agents. And she said it was brutal. It was hard. They didn't want to do it. So it's literally one of those stories where COVID underscored a problem that we already had. So what are the impacts? Alan, you want to talk about this one?
Basically, it completely, and I use the word basically a lot, it absolutely threw things into unexpected chaos, is what I call COVID. It was unexpected. Suddenly, the government or powers that be step in, and you have to allow for your people to take, you got to allow for them to be well. But also, you're looking at the fact that the government has said people get 2 weeks off regardless if they've been diagnosed with COVID. You're not supposed to have them work. I mean, it was a total freeze of labor or anything getting done for a period of about 3 months. And that labor shortage, that was critical. I mean, I don't know about you, but my AR, where I was working at the time, it was frozen. Calls were not being made. When I came during the middle of COVID to a particular company I was helping do an audit for, they had not billed their customer in 120 days, had $27 million of outstanding receivables.
That's a lot of
that no one sent a bill on.
Wow.
I mean, that's a huge impact when you have unexplained or unexpected changes in your labor and your labor availability.
Yeah, I agree. It occurs to me that, we're all living in a capitalistic society. We're all trying to compete, right? I want my company to be stronger than my competitor, and my competitor is trying to put me out of business. And because of that system, we're getting stronger, and we're learning to compete better. But if you're not adopting technology, it seems to me, you may be left behind. Your company increased financial risk. We just talked about that. Those are the errors that Alan brought up just a minute ago. Those errors that are lurking in your financial data when you don't have enough people to check the books. The stress and tension of the employees leads to unhappiness, people deciding, hey, you know what, after COVID, I don't want to go back to work. I don't need that hassle anymore. I'm going to go, move to Hawaii and, open up a glass blowing shop or something. Who knows? And then ultimately, because those people are gone, this is that perpetual cycle that goes around and around. The company has become less efficient and less competitive, and that leads to increased financial risk. So if we as an economy, as a society, want to be competitive in the world, we need to address these things and stop doing things the way we did in the past and start to think about new ways of adopting technology to solve that age-old problem.
I'll say also when you have the labor shortage, people are cutting corners. One of our partners that does credit reports said that when COVID hit, I mean, everybody just stopped pulling the reports. They're just processing credit applications, with the good old handshake kind of thing. They're not checking because they don't want to spend that extra money or take that extra time. They just want to keep things moving as well as they can. So, I mean, all three of those categories would fall under that.
Yeah. So I think we've beat that horse to death. Should we talk about how do we solve those issues?
Absolutely.
Well, on my side of it, hire the right person. That's easier said than done. Lori, I think you could probably help or give your opinion of that. What used to take us probably 2 weeks to hire a good person now takes 3 and 4 months to hire the right person. To get them to succeed, you've got to be willing to invest. You've got to invest in the software. You've got to invest in the hardware to give them what they need. And now you've got to make sure your data is safe and comfortable with them possibly working, like me, 1,800 miles from corporate office. Or, you've got to have those safeguards in place to solve those issues and to use whatever people you do have, get the most out of them, and then find something else that takes the more mundane and tedious tasks and find a way to make those things work.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I could have said that any better. Not much to add from my perspective. I'm completely in alignment with you. Take those routine mundane tasks, give them to technology, give them to bots, give them to some sort of software. Let the machine do what the machine does best, and let people do what they do best. Because there are certain tasks, which we'll talk about in a little while, that machines will never take away. So, Lori, anything else to add on this point?
I mean, working with the community and the employers and people that I deal with, there are a lot of companies that are having turnover. They just don't have any staff anymore to do the positions. Obviously, we manage the credit community, but finding the people to replace those positions, like you said, you have to have that right person. Everybody wants to work from home now. It's become the staple. So you have to be able to find a way to train and make sure they're doing their jobs. It's been a big issue. I mean, for the last year that I've heard about it.
Yeah, here's an interesting stat for you. The number to keep in mind is 48.5. 48.5. That is the number of minutes every day that the average employee works now, working from home, than they did before the pandemic. So that amount of time, because I know you guys aren't spending time commuting back and forth to the office in the car. My commute is from that bedroom to this office. And I can guarantee nobody on this phone call, nobody on this webinar is taking 1 hour lunches. I can guarantee it. So where does that time go? It goes back to the employer. They get an extra 48 and a half minutes of productivity out of us every day.
And I've heard that they are admitting that things that they thought had to be done in the office and watching over people, they just really didn't have to. As long as you got the right people hired, it's amazing the difference of amount of work that they're getting done.
Yeah. And people are happier because of it,
Right. And I think if we solve any problem, as far as giving more information, I don't think, and myself included, I don't think people truly know what the cost of technology versus individuals. I mean, individuals are very expensive. I mean, the things you have to do to get an individual to do what they need to do their job is horrifically expensive. And heaven forbid you have to train them and train a new person. And especially even for the most mundane task. Plus, you're dealing with internal issues. What if they have a bad day? What if their child gets sick? Technology doesn't take a day off, and it makes it more impactful for the rest. It sounds like I'm doing a commercial for you, Nick.
I appreciate that.
Not intending to, but it really is. As we got to doing this webinar together, I started thinking about how this has impacted me over the past 30 years. And it really is. It makes an impact. So I'll shut up.
You keep going, man. I love it. I might even hire you in marketing.
Right. Turn in your hymn books too. No.
So how do we think about automation? How does it change the game? I think we could probably jump to the next slide, and I'll give you some kind of thinking about. We've talked about technology. We've talked about how software and bots can actually take some of the routine, mundane drudgery out of the accounting and finance world. But let's talk about a couple of the ways that we can think about adopting new technology. Because honestly, I've learned that finance people don't buy software that often. In fact, an average CFO might change out their accounting software package once or twice in her career. So So people are not used to buying software and technology. They don't know how to buy it. Also, there've been, technologies that have come and gone, and not all of it has lived up to its promise. I'll be the first to admit that. So I'll give you a couple of key pointers or steps to think about as you want to roll out and evaluate new technology. Number one, embrace software as a service. So I use the word SaaS. People on the phone or the webinar may not know what that means, but it means that instead of having this disk that you stick into your computer and load it up on there, the software lives in the cloud. It's like, Amazon, Salesforce.com, you name it, Dropbox. There's a lot of SaaS applications where you can just sign up as a subscription and pay your vendor a monthly or annual fee. And if you don't like it anymore after a year, you don't have to renew. But it gives the customer the opportunity to walk away every week, every month, every year. But also puts the vendor on the hook, the supplier like me or like Alan, to make sure that we earn your business every single day. So that's embracing the cloud and software as a service is important. Also thinking about traditional versus innovative architecture, old kind of client server architecture or mainframe, dumb terminal that was around when I was coming up in IT. That's a thing of the past. Now everything's browser based and everything's in the cloud. It should be accessible everywhere, any time of the day or night, so that you can do your job if you want to be sitting on a beach. A friend of mine is he's a controller at a company in Georgia, and he's my age. He's in his early 50s, and he decided a few years ago he wanted to be a triathlete. He wanted to do triathlons, and after implementing technology, he told me, he said, "Nick, my team doesn't know this, but every Friday I'm literally at the pool swimming laps, and in between swimming laps, I'm out there, I'm logged into the ERP system, approving journal entries." And so literally, like, SaaS and innovative architecture allows people to do the things that they always want to do. And by the way, his name's Bram, and he's run 3 triathletes already.
Wow.
I'll pause there because I'm kind of monologuing here.
I'm still training for mine. I'm working on the nutritional part of mine. So
yeah, I think I'm probably an Xbox triathlete more than anything. But lift and shift versus transformation. So lift and shift means, do you want to completely throw out your old systems and put new ones in, which nobody wants to do? There's danger there. Versus transformation. How do we apply technology to make our existing systems smarter, better, faster, more efficient, more timely? Develop upskilling strategies. This is what I talked about earlier. The guy who used to pump gas is not pumping gas anymore. Now he's telling you which Gatorade to buy and which candy bars to buy. And that's a very basic example. But in our world, in finance and accounting, nobody goes to accounting school because they want to be a data entry clerk or a collection agent. They have this dream that they want to help guide the business and provide insights and provide recommendations and be the best business partner they can to the CEO and to the other business lines of business. So those upskilling strategies mean we're going to take the routine, mundane stuff and give that to the computers, the bots, and allow you to do the work that you went to accounting school to do. And then don't forget to capitalize on the opportunity. Because right now, I'm not saying you should adopt every new technology that comes out there, but for a moment in time, you may have a competitive advantage over your competitor by being an early adopter, because pretty soon, technology that was at the cutting edge once upon a time now becomes mainstream, and that opportunity that you had to get out ahead of your competitors is gone. So I would say capitalize on the opportunity while you have it. Thoughts from Lori or Alan on that?
I mean, I absolutely agree with that. My only question to this, I know a lot of people, obviously software is being embraced because of the remote workers and all that, but a lot of people are still worried about the protection of their data that gets, uploaded into the cloud.
It's a scary place. It can be. So for us at Auditoria, we're asking finance people and accountants to take their most sensitive financial data and trust us with it in the cloud. And a few years ago, that was a scary proposition. It's like, no. I'd rather have this stuff, this data on a hard drive, a server in my computer room. But, I have a story. It's not a good one, but, sometimes a dental office that I know of, they kept all their patient records on a computer underneath the front desk by the receptionist. And literally someone could and did walk in, unplug it, and walk out with the company's entire financial data underneath their arm. So once upon a time, it used to be that the cloud was the scary alternative. Now I think that having trying to protect your data as a CFO or controller, a finance person, it's not your job. It's not what you're good at. Nobody went to school to be like a data scientist or a security expert. I would say let the people in the cloud, the security experts, handle that, and stop trying to keep the financial data underneath the desk of the receptionist.
Kind of reminds me of when people don't want to use a bank, so they put all the money under their mattress, and then a fire or robbery happens.
or they want hard copies of everything, and hard copies degrade. I mean, I don't know how long you expect paper to last, but anything that has any thermal properties at all or around moisture is going to degrade. And then, the other thing is, I hear this all the time. Do not take your financial recommendations from TikTok videos or YouTube videos, because I guarantee you what's out there is, we don't want to get too automated because our customers, they get a robocall and then they're going to get sued. No, it's really not about that. It's not about us trying to sell, hand lotion or something at a discount. What we're doing is providing a service and staying in touch with the customer. And most customers that you're dealing with, these are commercial businesses for the most part. They have signed documents that say, hey, it's okay to talk to me. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get sued because you're contacting a customer to pay a bill they rightfully owe. That is probably the biggest misconception that's out on the internet right now, is saying that the consumer is out to get you. We need to tear those walls down and say, hey, technology is the best way for me to serve you as a customer. Mm-hmm. You want somebody. You don't want to get on the phone and it say there's a 30-minute wait for you to talk to a live person. It shouldn't be about live or not live. It should be 30 minutes. It should be 30 seconds to get your problem solved, to get your questions answered. And the more we give to that, the better off, and quit being so resistant, the better off our customers are going to be, because everybody's from the show me state when it comes to this. You got to show them. So show them the money. That's what we all do. We want to show them the money, get paid faster, and move forward and step into technology and get away from things, because honestly, not moving forward, it's going to hurt you and cost you every time.
Yep. So, couldn't agree more.
I'm preaching.
By the way, the number one, the weakest link in any security system is the human beings, right? Social engineering. And they've proven that time and time again. Somebody sends a phishing email, and an employee who's been through security training, every year, clicks on a link, and all of a sudden now something gets downloaded on their computer and it takes it over. And so it's really, I think you're right, Alan. And I appreciate your point on customer service and having the ability to reach somebody and talk to somebody to have your problem solved. Because when we talk about technology, robots will never be in customer service. I mean, yeah, people have tried it, but when you are having a problem with your bank account or your credit or an invoice, you want a person to explain it to you. And a bot will never have that empathy, and a bot will never have the ability to really connect with somebody and solve their problem.
And with technology, I'm going to say I've used it before. Even technology was a big thing, but the online chats, if you're in your software and it's got a little online chat box, it's a real person and you can talk to it. You don't have to call. You don't have to wait in line. It's awesome.
That's good. So cool. Let me, can I spend just a minute talking about, what we do at Auditoria? I think we have a slide coming up that's whoever's manning this one, if you could just build out the left-hand side, that we don't have to go through this. So this is my 30-second pitch for what Auditoria does. And there's lots of other great companies that have great technology, but here's what we do. Every back office, whether it's, AP, AR, or all of accounting, has a shared email box. And normally that email box is full of garbage. It's full of spam that people are, sending things in. And some person on your team, probably the lowest person on the totem pole, has the inglorious task of going through this mailbox and trying to decipher hundreds of messages and trying to find what people want. We use something called cognitive automation to read the emails that are in your AP, AR, or general finance inbox, figure out what they want, and fulfill that wish. We connect to your accounting software, your ERP system, and we use all this technology on the left-hand side. I won't go into this word salad of like all these acronyms, what it is, but essentially, the same technology that you have on your phone here that allows you to talk to Siri or Google. We use that same technology to understand through email what somebody's asking for, Give me a copy of the invoice. We give them a copy of the invoice. Give me a copy of the purchase order. We give them a copy of the purchase order. Set this new vendor up in the system. Our bots do all that kind of stuff. So suffice it to say, we sit on top of the email box. We take 90% of that stuff and handle it day or night, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, so that your team doesn't have to. We use what's called cognitive automation. We take those pieces on the left, we assemble them on the right, and that is what Auditoria's smart bots do. We have a collections application, we have an accounts payable application, we have other applications that are coming out. We do something called vendor invoice data extraction. When a vendor sends you, it's a fancy word, but when a vendor sends you an invoice, our bots read it, the PDF, they scan it, they figure out all the line items, and they create that journal entry in your accounting system for a person to then approve for payment or not, versus having somebody sit there and hand code and copy paste. Because when that happens, errors are made, mistakes are made, things get omitted. And so that in a nutshell is what we do at Auditoria. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to turn this into a sales pitch. I'll turn it over here to Alan to talk about Level Set and what you guys, and Lori, what you guys do at Level Set and how that might be able to help the folks on the webinar.
Boy, Nick, that's great. I had no idea. I mean, I've even been with you for the past couple of days, and that's amazing stuff. I mean, I could see the application of that right off the top.
Anything that recognizes your position, gets you in touch with your peers and the new generation coming up. Like Nick was saying earlier, people are retiring, people are moving on to different things. A lot of credit managers have been with their companies for a long time. So it's new people that are coming in that don't have the experience. So they want to reach out to people that can kind of guide them along the way. And that's what I do with Level Set. I know Alan kind of has a different section on his.
Right. And I'm sure we're getting close to where we're going to open it up for questions, but basically I'm with Level Set. I am over the material finance section, but Level Set is so much more than that. Like I said, our goal and our mission statement is start with love and help people get paid the money that they're owed. So we have several sections of things that we do as Level Set. We have a document control section. We have the ability for our people to do the lien filing. I think we tipped our hat to that before. Our software helps you get your liens filed to make sure your documents are done timely and effectively. Gives you control, yet it makes sure you do things on a timely basis so your lien rights are protected, so that your ability to get paid is protected. We have another side of our business, it's Legal Guard. It's always great to have an attorney on your side when you need to have an attorney on your side. So you have the job radar here. It's pretty self-explanatory. You get your lien alerts, you get payment delay tracking. If we find out that a customer is having issues paying or getting paid from a GC, you're going to find those things out. You're going to find out when bankruptcies are being filed. You're going to make sure that whatever state you're doing business in, the preliminary notices are sent if they need to be sent. Your notice of intent to lien is going to be sent exactly when it needs to be sent. And that whole lien management system is something that Level Set can help you do. We have nothing that Level Set does, Lori, I think you'll agree with this, is one size fits all.
Oh, definitely not.
we cater everything to work with the individual customer, and whatever you're doing and whatever your volume is, we will cater to that. Maybe you don't need a huge subscription service to do that. Maybe you just need a pay-as-you-go type situation. We offer all that. And then moving forward, if you've got a project that you really want to get done and you need to, you want to build your cash flow or expand your cash flow, come to us for material financing. We're completely transparent. You may have a $50,000 line of credit with your supplier. Well, why not double that by having your projects all financed by Level Set? We'll pay your supplier up front. And guess what? You still have a $50,000 line of credit you haven't even touched. So there's a lot of information out there of a lot of things you do. I think Lori and I or anybody would be available to help you answer any of those questions. All our websites are there. You can go to levelset.com. Matter of fact, if you're one of those, it's like, what are the lien rights in California? I guarantee if you put lien rights California, Level Set will probably be the first Google pop-up almost every time, if not second, but usually it's the first.
We work hard on that.
I've talked everybody's ear off too, but I think Nick and I are ready to take any questions, or Lori. I know we don't have a lot of people out there, but whatever, we're ready to take any questions you might have.
Yeah, we don't have any currently. If anybody's got a question, just put it in the chat or raise your hand and we'll get it going for you.
I do have a question about Level Set. That was very interesting. So just kind of how you guys have learned a little bit about Auditoria, learning a little about Level Set. How often are you updating your application to keep up with the different, you mentioned like liens in California versus, there's all kinds of laws that are changing. What does that look like?
Everything is real. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Everything we do is real time. We are constantly monitoring like Texas just had the huge change in their lien laws. And as soon as we got that information, we got it out to all of our customers, letting them know. And then actually Lori was great. She'll set up a conference and bring in the experts and say, hey, if you want to know a one-on-one, or she'll have webinars about it. And then as far as real time, if a customer were to file bankruptcy or anything, that information, as soon as we get it from the courthouse, you will find it available to you, and you'll get an alert. So that is crucial.
What's the alternative then? Like, how would people do it manually? They have to go out and they have to log into 50 different websites for 50 different states and try to figure out the laws and what's going on.
Funny you say that. Yes, because when I was working at Crawford, I would have to go to individual Secretary of State's websites, or if I'm looking for a tax assessor's office, some of them have now all started charging $1.50 per search, or some of them require you to have a credit card and you put it on file. Well, who wants to have a credit card on file in every municipality that you do business? I mean, talk about, not that the government's bad with taking care of private information, but
no, that's just a proliferation. You don't want to, no matter who it is, you don't want your credit card out there in that many sites to begin with. It's just asking for trouble. That seems like there's a pretty obvious like use case there, and a time saving. So like you just log into the level set application, you type in something, and then it provides the information that you need.
It provides the information. And if it's more detailed where you need us to do, we have a scout research team that you can give us a piece of property or an actual project that you want to ask a question about. We will do the research for you. And some of this is, subscription as a service. So some of this you're going to pay, a subscription service for. Some of these, it's going to be, if you just want one lien filed, that's something you can do, or just one notice done, you can just pay for it by notice. But if you need real research done, that's what our team is there for. And we've got a team of salespeople and professionals that can help you through that. Just go through our website.
It's one thing to keep in mind is tons. I mean, the majority of our content is free. I mean, Absolutely. You log into the community and everything in there is free. You can look up contractor profiles. You can take classes. You can get certified. I mean, whatever you're looking up, the majority of it is free. There's nothing that I do with Level Set that costs anything for anybody. And so anytime you come to our website, I mean, or even just shoot us an email and ask. The majority of it's going to be free unless you want to sign up and have your dashboard and, all your accounts watched and that sort of thing. But there is a lot of content that, unfortunately you'd have to Google otherwise. And like we said, go to 20 different websites to find it.
When somebody
hopefully there's nobody here from the Minnesota, St. Paul, Minneapolis, the assessor's office there, because to tell you how good our scout team is, we found an error in the property records for the city of Minneapolis where they had wrong names on everybody's property in this one neighborhood. And had our guys not found it, our team guys, just saying guys, that have our team not found it, the actual city had it wrong. They were billing taxes to the wrong people, and we found it.
Wow.
So, and these are transfers of properties that had happened 6 months prior. So
I hope your PR and marketing team took full advantage of that, because that is pure gold to get that story out there. Like literally, we solved this problem for the city of Minneapolis, St. Paul.
How would you like to be in the middle of a closing on your dream piece of property and suddenly find out the closing stopped because it said you didn't own your property?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, can you imagine, as if a closing is not already painful enough?
No,
so
that's crazy. That is crazy. So if I were to sign up with Level Set, like what does it take to get onboarded, and how long does that take, and what does that look like?
Honestly, everything is right there. You go to our website, it'll say request a demo. Somebody will be back to you shortly. They'll send you an email and they will walk you through all the steps. It's not a huge sales pitch up front. They know time is valuable. They're going to answer what you're looking for. They may suggest a few things, but they're not going to suggest anything that's going to cost you a huge amount of money. Matter of fact, they're going to show you free content before they show you anything that costs. And that's pretty much the way it is. So, Nick, I appreciate all the great information you gave us on your company, and that's a value right there. That's a lot of value that you've shown us, and we appreciate your time on that.